Hey there everyone and welcome to my craft room. My name's Julianne Richards and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in southern Tasmania. This is the video tutorial for my May Fun Fold class. Thanks guys to everyone who purchased this one, and also thank you for the patience to wait for me to complete this video. It's been a big week of running around helping my mum and dad. Unfortunately, some of you may know my dad's not very well, so it's been a big week of running around helping them and taking them to appointments, and always in the back of my mind that I had to get this video done for you. And I know that your kits are starting to arrive, so thank you again for your patience. We'll go through each of these cards in order. What probably best to watch the video first before you whip out your glue and start gluing. Often there's little tips and trips that you see after you've watched the video that might make it easier for you to successfully complete the cards. We've got a really cute Scrappy strip technique card here with the seashells die and the lovely waves of the ocean paper. We've got a layering card here with the symbols of fortune paper and a wee bit of fussy cutting there that I probably should have done already, but I haven't, but we can do that together. And a pop-up easel card, which is new to me. It's the first time I've done one of these in my classes. Normal easel card really, but it's got this really cute sort of box at the beginning, so it's really a pop-up box card, and it folds flat like that in the envelope, so it's really nice. So it just adds another dimension with something a little bit different with that easel at the front there. I've just grabbed sentiments from all around the place, so we'll see which ones I've used as we go. But as with my Fun Fold classes, you can use whatever sentiment fits for you, which one you prefer. Okay, so let's get started. We might as well start from the right-hand side and do the Scrappy strip technique one first. Here's my kit. Yours will look very similar. Just be careful when you take everything out. I think all the little bling will probably be all separate, so they're going to fall to the floor with a little tinkle if you move too fast. There'll be some sentiment boxes and things in there as well, which could come cluttering down. So there, I'll just move my little iridescent gems out of the way so I don't lose them. You've got the full, so we're only actually going to use part of that die cut. You can see there we've got the shell and the big main shell and some reeds things here, but you've got the whole die cut. So this is how the die cut comes out of the embossing folder once you've cut it. If you haven't seen this one, it's like a two-part thing. You cut the paper first, you end up with sort of like a flat die cut, and then you pop it through the embossing folder, and it's all the lovely grooves and things are positioned to give that die cut a whole sort of look to itself. So we're only actually going to use parts. I'm going to use this shell here, this big shell here. I'm going to use this part of here and these little wavy bits at the top, this little seaweed at the top here. Not using this guy, so, but you know, obviously if you think you can pop that onto the card as well, go for it. Very, very welcome to pop as much or as little on the card as you want. We'll do the Scrappy strip part of the card first. There's a few techniques in this one that I haven't used for a while. I'll just move the original out of the way so I can see it and make you think I'm all very clever by doing what I'm doing. Okay, so you've got some strips here. Now these strips are all 3/4 of an inch wide, but they are perfectly rectangular. They haven't been cut to the angle that I normally cut my strips. That piece of paper is going to move around and annoy me. You should have 6 paper strips, 6 designer series paper strips, and 2 plain sort of Night of Navy strips there as well. So we can use all of those. Now here you have your choice. You can get your trimmer out and trim those scraps so that they're thicker at one end and narrow at the other. So I think with this card, I've got them at the 3/4 of an inch at the thick end, and I've trimmed them down to 1/2 an inch at the skinny end. So you can do that. It's entirely up to you, and you'll get that sort of random sort of build up of the layers there. Or you can just, keep them at the same width all the way along and pop them onto your card that way. I might, since it's a little bit more complicated to actually pop, to sort of cut them down, I might actually cut them down. At least then if you choose that, you're going to know how to do it. So I'm going to grab my trimmer. I'm going to use my little guillotine, I think. I don't bother getting the big trimmer out. And you can be as random or as precise with this as you want. So as I say, one end I'm going to leave at the full length, the full 3/4 of an inch. The other one I'm going to trim down to 1/2 an inch. So how I'm going to do that with this particular trimmer is line it up at one end at the very edge so it doesn't overlap at all. Then position this one so that it's 1/2 an inch there, and then I'm just going to trim them down. So you get that sort of thickness at one end and thinner at the other, and you get a wee bit of scrap which you can keep or throw, entirely up to you. Same thing, I'm going to line it up exactly at that end, line it up with 1/2 an inch at the top. As I say, this is how I would do it. It's entirely up to you. You might just decide to go totally random and cut them at sort of weird and wonderful angles, which is entirely up to you. But I'll keep going here. Then when it comes to actually layering these onto your card, I sort of tend to alternate between a thick end up against a thin end, sort of like go thick, thin, and it sort of layers up nicely, and sort of ends in roughly the same place, the right place at the end. You have got an extra, at least an extra one layer here, just in case you need that extra bit. If you cut it a bit thin, you need an extra layer or something, or you make a boo-boo, you should have at least one. But if you need to supplement it with any more cardstock, I probably suggest you just pick like a blue, like your Night of Navy or something, and just use an extra layer of that. Okay, am I nearly done? One more to go, or two more to go. Could probably cut these multiples at the same time, but anyway, that's okay. Just lining it up there. And the last one. So this Waves of the Ocean is unfortunately retired now. It was a special deal with the, I think it was the Waves of something. Waves of it was a stamp set and a die that had a beautiful wave in them. So those are still available in the current catalogue, but the paper is no more. So if you love it, there might be some out there in the second-hand market, but there we are. So there we are. I have cut all our pieces so that they are 1/2 an inch at one end and 3/4 of an inch at the other. Oh, excuse me. So that's it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Now, generally when I do a scrappy strip technique, I actually I cheat a wee bit, and rather than putting the glue on the back of each of the strips, I actually got a hair on my finger. I actually pop the adhesive, or in this case glue, snail, straight onto the card because it's going to go right to the edges. So I'll do a strip down there, a strip down the other side, take one right across the bottom, right across the top, and then my snail's decided to loop in amongst itself. Oh, it's just run out. That's great. I might finish it off with some double-sided tape. Double-sided tape is the other option. So I got that far with my snail. I knew it had run out just as I was doing it. Double-sided tape is just as good. So I'll pop one across the top, one across the bottom, two sides, and then depending how I'm feeling, I will then put one up the middle, or even a couple up the middle, but I'm just going to put one here. And there's a bit there that was missed as well. So, and this basically will, you'll be able to you just now be able to, we'll see in a second as I do it, you'll be able to just lay each of the strips down, and it'll hold in place with all that adhesive that I've already laid down. Okay, so I'm going to start just with designer series paper. Grab it, pop this is the sort of the flat end, the straight end, line it up with the bottom of the card. As I said, you're going to overlap, but that's perfectly fine. That's what we want. And just lay that down, and that will stick to the snail double-sided tape that I've already laid down there. Okay, so that's the first strip. I'm going to just layer up. As I say, I usually alternate between thick end, thin end as I work my way up. I'm not going to leave a gap in between or very much of a gap in between the layers, maybe just a skerrick, so you can just see a whisper, a hint of that white coming through. And we'll go again, so thin end, now the thick end. Okay, then the next one I'm going to bring in is a piece of the cardstock, so the Night of Navy cardstock. Bring that in as well. And then another piece of paper, so thin end, thick end. Yeah. And then again. So we just, as I said, layering up as we work our way up the page. I might bring that other one in. I'm trying to keep the different, there's a couple of different sorts of designer series paper here, a couple of different sheets. So try and alternate those as well, so you don't get the same sort of colours and patterns up against each other. So I'm right to the top now, so I could either choose to go this last piece of designer series paper or the last piece of cardstock. So I might just bring the last piece of cardstock in. And pop that on there. So that's stuck to the glue, the snail at the top, but it's got a bit of overlap. In fact, we've got overlap on 3 edges. So now we need to bring in our trimmer. Hopefully my trimmer will behave itself. It's been a bit naughty lately and getting stuck when I don't want it to get stuck. But we'll see how we go. So I'm going to line that up with the edges. I find this in a trimmer on a guillotine a bit easier than doing this with my paper trimmer, my Stampin' Up one, basically because I can line it up perfectly with the edge, and that worked well. Well done, little trimmer. So I've, as I say, trimmed that off in line with the edge. I'll turn it round again, line it up with the edge. I'll take my glasses off, can't see. And trim that down, and then turn it for our last one, and that will be your background pretty much done. Beautiful, and you worked well. Congratulations, little trimmer. You can have a little break now. Okay, so there is our background. Really love that. Just all the blues. You guys know me, I love my blues, especially together with the beautiful bright white of our basic white. Oh, she says, trying to tell everyone else to be careful and then dropping things everywhere. Okay, so now we're going to cut up this die cut and to the bits that we want to keep. So what I'm actually going to do is I want to keep this shell. I want to keep these sort of this sort of piece of seaweed here. And I'm going to actually keep that shell as well, just because it's going to be a neater finish to these little the weeds here that go up and supposedly behind it. So I'm just going to trim those off. So just grab your scissors and following the line of the actual design. Don't just cut it off straight because it's going to look silly. Just sort of put the curves in where the curves are supposed to be, and I'm going to cut that off. Okay, so that's the first piece of our shell we're going to use, and that's just going to sit just there on our card, just on the bottom left-hand corner. Then I also want this little shell here, and he's going to sit on some dimensionals, so I'll cut him out as well. Get rid of all the little extra bits around him. Okay, keep going, just nearly done. So he can pop aside because I'm going to bring him in last. And then, as I say, I don't want this big beautiful shell here, but I do want these pieces of seaweed. So I'm going to trim those off. So there, this shell we're not going to use, so you can use that, keep that and use it on another card later on. Just going to even off this edge here so it looks nice and smooth and natural. And then we have our little bit of seaweed. So this seaweed's going to pop in and under there behind that shell and reaching up to the top of our card there, just like that. Okay, so we might as well glue those down. I'll put that seaweed down first. Just pop some glue on the larger pieces. Okay, about there. Okay, and now a big shell, nice big amount of glue on the back of that. Here we are. So this is coming together nicely. Okay, now we've got this little shell here, this little snail shell. He's going to sit on there, but I'm going to pop him on some dimensionals just to give him a little bit of height away from the rest of the card. I've had some dimensionals here. I'm just using my edges at the moment on this one before I get rid of it. Here we are. So I've just left these beautiful and white so they stand out from the blue behind. But I mean, of course, you could grab a sponge or something if you're feeling a little bit adventurous. Grab a sponge or a brush and give them a little bit of a hint of colour, something behind, something sort of subtle. But I'm just, as I say, leaving them completely white. Got a little sentiment box here. It's nothing going to earth-shattering. I'm going to use the thank you. This is from the Friends Are Like Seashells stamp set. It's a current stamp set. It actually complements the dies and the embossing folder that we've used to make the shells. Everything's gone a little bit unfocused at the moment. Apologies for that. Just let it see if it can focus. It's a little bit dark in the craft room today. I think we're going to get some rain. Not too far away. Come on. Usually it lets me refocus. Or it might just be my eyes. Is it my eyes that are out of focus? Yep, no, that looks better. Sometimes I wonder whether it's the computer or me. So just this little thank you. Probably got overkill on the block, a little bit big. That's okay. Just I can see where I am. Thank you. Now this cute little bannered sentiment box is from the very, very new die set from the current catalogue. It's just arrived. It's called Subtle Shapes or something like that. I'm just going to head over and see if I can quickly lay my hands on it. Stylish Shapes. So this is Stylish Shapes. And if you've been around for a while, you remember that we lost our stitched shapes a couple of years ago. So we get them back here. So we've got stitched circles, stitched squares, and some of these really nice stitched banners as well. So yeah, definitely worth grabbing this one if you didn't get the stitched shapes from before. Anyway, so I'm going to pop this little sentiment. I'm just going to sort of pop it slightly under that shell so it looks like it's peeking out from behind it. But I'm just going to glue it straight on. Just get my tool and just lift the edge of that shell slightly so I can pop it under just a wee bit. And then it'll head out to the right hand side like that. Bit hard to get this one straight because with the Scrappy strip technique, everything, all the angles are a little bit skew. So it's going to be best endeavours to get that as straight as I can. But there you are. Okay, so you've got some bling. You should have 3 iridescent gems. And I'll just keep my tool since I've got it here. I'm just going to pop those around. And then this one is done. This is card number 1. It wasn't too bad. Wasn't looking forward to having to do that one again. Well, I mean, you know, just because it's fiddly. Yeah, and one down here. There we are. Okay, so there's card number 1 done. I like that one, but then I am a sucker for the blue and the white, as you guys know. Okay, so hope you enjoy that one. I think it'd be a lovely masculine card for a birthday or something like that. Okay, push everything aside. You should see the mess I have here, guys. Let's do card number 2, and the next one that comes to my hands is this one. So this is the Symbols of Fortune. Should have done my fussy cutting. So homework before you start is to do your fussy cutting. In this case, you have to fussy cut that little flower and that little flower. So this little bunch and that flower. Thankfully, I've done it a few times and it doesn't take too long. To take my glasses off again though. If I'm feeling clever with my editing software, I might speed myself up when I get to this part. Or you can speed me up by just, what's the word, scrolling through. Or grab your scissors and your kit and we can do it together. So the way I find best to fussy cut is to not so much you move my scissors, but to actually move the paper. So you actually move the paper in the direction of the pattern and then just basically let your scissors sit and slowly close as the paper moves through. There's not much to this as far as fussy cutting is concerned. It's just a whole series of circular movements. Yeah, that's not too bad, eh? Hardly worth scrolling through. This is a bit more. I've cheated a bit here with this one because knowing that this was the one I was going to keep for myself, I've actually used the end of the designer series paper. So there was one of these little flowers that sort of disappeared off one side and got sort of cut off a little bit. And then obviously with the pattern of the paper it sort of reappeared on the other side. So I've just combined the two images to make a full image, given that there were only a few in, for you guys to use in the pack itself. Just I can feel that I've got a fair bit more paper that I'm cutting. It's not quite as smooth as if it was a single piece. I've got the second piece behind. That's okay, nearly done. Just around the last of these little buds, the last of the leaves, back onto the stem. And we're done. There we go. So we've got that stem with two leaves there, and then a single flower. And what I'm going to do is just position that single flower behind so that that little leaf comes out in front of it, and it just gives that little bouquet a little bit more body, a little bit more oomph. So that's what I'm using on the front of this card, as you can see here. Okay, so let's get started with this one now that I've done my fussy cutting. Apologies for that. I probably should have done, as I say, done it first. Be careful with your little gems that they don't fall out all over the place. This one's a wee bit of a jigsaw puzzle, so I'll show you how to line up the pieces of designer series paper that you've got. So you've got card base, normal size card base, then you've got a layer of soft succulent cardstock. So that one's going to go just straight on top of the card base. Just as so. It's a fairly large border. It's a 1/4 of an inch border rather than an 1/8 of an inch. There we are. Okay. Then you've got 4 pieces of designer series paper. So we're going to be using the side that has the pretty little butterflies on it. You've got, just move that out of the way and I'll show you. You've got 2 sort of longer pieces. They're 3 1/4 inches long, and 2 sort of squarer pieces. So you've got, if you put them together, you'll see that you've got a long piece that's got a corresponding shorter piece is the same width. I've totally mucked up that explanation. And then you've got a wider piece with a wider square as well. So explanation, this one is 1 3/4 wide, and this one is 1 7/8 wide. So you've got a long wide part and a short wide piece, and a narrow long piece and a short long piece. Long, long, long and wide, short and wide, long and narrow, short and narrow. Okay, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is pop them onto our card, keep them in that sort of configuration. We're going to pop them onto our card base. We're going to have the broad one Once you've got them worked out, sorry, my trimmer hasn't trimmed that properly and it's a bit furry. Okay, so we're going to pop sort of one piece, say the wide long piece on there, and then bring in the shorter wide piece like that, and then we've got to bring the narrow long one down. So you're sort of building like a brick wall, a bit like a brick wall. So you're having them at opposite ends, so alternating. So the long one is at the top and then it's at the bottom, and the short one is at the bottom and then it's at the top. So it just looks a bit like a brick wall, if that makes sense. So keep the widths on the same side, so the narrow ones on one side and the thick ones on the other side, and alternate the long one and the short one, if that makes sense. That's basically what you're after. As I say, if I turn it sideways, it looks like a bit like a brick wall. Okay, so we'll glue those down now that I've totally confused you. Have a little bit of play with your pieces and see how you go, but it should make sense when you see them laid out. So try and lay them so that you've got a straight line there, and then line them up so that they form a straight line along the bottom as well. Here we are. And the last one. Just like that. Okay. Okay, very nearly finished now. So you've got a square of soft succulent and a slightly smaller square of basic white. That's basic white one's obviously going to sit on top of the soft succulent. There we are. And then that is going to be on dimensionals and sit onto the top, onto the front of our card. So grab my dimensionals, cut some off. Gosh, we're getting through the cards today. The last one is probably a little bit fiddlier than the others, so that'll take us a little bit longer. The pop-up easel card. Also, because I haven't weeded. Piece of homework number 2 is to weed your sunflower for the last card. So I'm going to put this little box probably more, slightly more towards the top than the bottom, just because we want, I'll bring in the other one, we want our sentiment on the bottom. So probably bring the actual flower a little bit higher than center, just like that. Then, as I said, we're going to bring that flower in and pop it behind just to make it a slightly fuller posy. Just pop some glue on the back there and position that little extra bloom so it's tucked in behind. Looks like it's always been there. And then that's going to sit on the card front, so a bit of glue all over that. And onto our card, onto that little raised square. Now it will overlap a fair bit all over the place, but that's part of the fun. how we're going. Okay, so for our sentiment, you've got a strip of basic white cardstock. I'm going to use the Thanks a Bunch from the, and I know I've got it here somewhere. Yeah, Thanks a Bunch from the Celebrating Sunflowers. There's a little Thanks a Bunch there, which is just about perfect for the size of sentiment. And because we've got a bunch of flowers, it also fits quite well, doesn't it? Not big enough. Again, just going to use some black ink. I did contemplate soft succulent, but I don't think it stood out far enough, in the rest of the colours. So, Thanks a Bunch. I love this sentiment. Actually, I love that whole stamp set, to be honest. Very glad that they're continuing this one. Now, I have bannered the ends of the original card, and as much as I'll use this. So I'll use my banner punch. So this one has overall 6 sorts of banners you can do. There's the ones that are sort of concave and convex with 3 different widths. So I'm going to use the innie one, the concave one, and banner that. Make sure it's a little bit further. Would use my tailored punch, but we don't have it anymore. My tailored tag punch used to be my favourite bannering equipment, but we'll have to use the actual banner punch now. There we go. You can just use a pair of scissors to banner if you've got a steady hand, but I've never been quite that steady. So we're going to bring this one down, and again I'm going to pop that onto some dimensionals just to help it stay and get a bit of attention, next to this beautiful flower. And we've got some bling, and then that's it for card number 2. Just realised I haven't used any ribbon in any of these cards. I must have been having a anti-ribbon month when I designed them. Okay, so Thanks a Bunch down the bottom there. As again, we have some bling. Again, I've used iridescent gems, so that's what you should have in your kit. I'm going to pop those around. There we are. Okay. Actually, that one should be over there. Broken my old triangle bling rule, haven't I? Let's see if I can get it off without causing national incident. Oh, left the adhesive back behind. Oh well, I'm going to have to live with that there because as I say, I ripped the backing off, but that's okay. There you go. So that's card number 2 of our May Fun Fold class. So I love that one. I love that paper. As you can tell, you probably remember I used it on many occasions over the last few weeks. And thankfully, we still have it till the end of June. So I'll be able to use it even more. Okay, card number 2. Let's pop that away, put that over there. Oh gosh, it's getting a bit messy around here. Okay, so card number 3 is our pop-up easel card. Yeah. So let's have a little look. So I'm using the beautiful Celebrating Sunflowers die there to make that big beautiful sunflower. I've used the pretty flowers embossing folder behind. That leaf, you won't have that leaf in your packs because I decided after I saw it on my own card that I didn't like it. So we're just sticking with the leaves that go with the sunflowers. And this is a strip of the Daffodil Afternoon Designer Series paper, which was a celebration freebie, and I somehow found myself with about 20 packs of it. So yeah, so that's what you get in your Fun Fold class today, even though it's now retired, just to help me use 20 packs of it that I seem to have here. Again, be careful, don't lose your bling and your various bits and bobs. I'm going to leave all the die cuts in there, I think, just for the moment, just so that they don't go wandering off, and I'll get the stuff out that we need for the card itself. That's it to start with. Okay, so you have a card base here, which has been cut and partially folded, but it's definitely been scored. You'll be able to see the score lines on there. So you can see here at the beginning we have 1, 2, 3, 4 little score marks there that form, when you fold them up like this, they fold the pop-up part, the box that forms the foot for our easel card. So all you need to do basically to start with is just get some glue, add it to that very end flap there, so the very end one, and then curl them all around so they form a cube like that, and then just firm that down. Okay, so that forms, and then you can just have a bit of a practice fold. Always best to have a practice fold when you've got your fun folds happening before the glue dries too much there. Okay, so the rest of the card is obviously going to fold up like that to form part of the easel, and then I have to check myself here, and then there's another fold here, and that folds up. So that's where you can see there, that's where the sort of front facing easel is actually going to be glued to, which happens to be this piece of basic white which I've got here. So eventually we're going to add that extra piece of Whisper White glued to that front facing tab there. But we might decorate it first and get it lovely. Okay, so the colour here is crushed curry, and you can see that I've popped half of your crushed curry matte through the Pretty Flowers embossing folder. I didn't bother putting it all through because this side's going to be covered with paper anyway, so it's actually easier for the paper to stick to an unembossed part rather than trying to stick it to the embossed part. So that's going to go straight onto our white easel. Just a very tiny border all the way around, just like that. And we'll bring in our layer of designer series paper, the Daffodil Afternoon Celebration one. Now, you've got to look at this one. It does have an actual up and an actual down, so make sure you align it correctly. And there will be a very small border between that paper and the crushed curry as well. So I'll bring it close and hopefully you can see. So there's a little border of white and then a little border of crushed curry and then the paper, like that. That's cute, isn't it? Okay, so that is going to have our sunflower on it. We might bring our sunflower in now. Okay, so the sunflower has an outline die, which I've done in Daffodil Delight. It's got the detail die, which needs to be weeded, but that's in the crushed curry as well. I'm just going to weed that. As I said, homework number 2, before you start your card, you need to weed your daisy, what is it? Sunflower. And there's a fair bit of weeding to do. Now, there's dozens and dozens of little holes in the centre of this die down here. I'm not going to bother getting those out. They may well fall out over time, but life's too short, especially at the moment, to pick all those out. If you've got time, go for it. And where does all little weeds go? Onto the floor. Okay, so there we are. So now you need to rotate the detail die until you find the bit where it matches the background die exactly. And I do it with this one in that I look for these 3 or 4 petals here, and because they all sort of lean over to the right hand side, they look a bit like, I always think of them that they look like the Sydney Opera House. So they all look like that. So I look for the Sydney Opera House on the background, and I look for the Sydney Opera House on the die itself. And I'm sure the Americans people in the US who designed this one didn't do that in mind, but that's what it reminds me of. So I'm just going to pop some glue just on that central part there. You can pop glue on all that little fine stuff if you really want to, but I quite like the fact that it will sit up and give a little bit of dimension. Lining up the Sydney Opera House. There we go. You'll be looking at it going, what are you talking about, Julianne? I can't see the Sydney Opera House. Anyway, put in the comments if you find the Sydney Opera House. As I say, there's 4 of them there and they all lean over to the right-hand side. There we are. So tell me in the comments if you think I'm crazy or if you found it as well. Okay, so we're finishing off our sunflower. We've got a early espresso circle here, which basically just pops into the middle. Just straight with some glue, straight into the middle of the sunflower, just like that. And then that's going to sit towards the top of your decorated easel. So towards the front, probably give it 2 centimetres, an inch and a bit from the top to where the flower starts, and fairly sort of pretty much over to the left-hand side. That's just because we're going to have our sentiment coming out here to the right-hand side. And we're going a bit higher than middle because we're going to obviously have our box down here, so you won't be able to see. If you put it too low, you're not going to see it over the box or under the box. Okay, so we'll pop that on. So over to the left-hand side, probably a couple of centimetres from the top. And there it pops. Okay. Now, also from die cuts, you've got a couple of leaves. Now, the leaves are the same. They have a background die and a detail die. So you should have 2 of each. And my die machine would only cut one thickness at a time. So I had to cut all of these out individually, and I think there was 20 odd kits that I did. So I did 40 leaves. So I don't think I ever wanted to see another leaf ever again once I'd finished. So wee bit of weeding. Oh, don't throw it away. It's the other one. I've thrown it away. Where did it go? 1, 2, 1, 2. There's one. There should be another background one. Oh, what have I done? Oh, there it is. I threw it away too rigorously. Okay, so again, you've got lots of fiddly bits to put glue on. I tend to just stick to the centre. There tends to be, there's some thicker pieces there, and towards the edges as well, there's some more substantial pieces of cardstock, and then just position that over the leaf. And I've got it on the wrong side. You can tell they go together quite well when you've got the right sides together. I had the wrong side there. So there's that one. And the same with the other one. So you've just got two little leaves. I'm not even sure that sunflower leaves look like this, but you know, we'll go with it. Again, I'll try and get the right side. And pop them together. Okay, so our two leaves are together now. Now I'm just going to pop those up behind our sunflower, just at the top there. Here we are, so just like that. You could put one over there, or you could put one down here if you wanted to, not too far down, because as I say, you're going to cover over the bottom with the box. So I might do that this time. And you guys can make your mind up what you want to do once you've got yours. So I'll pop one up there and one down here. Okay, so there's our decorated easel front. Okay, so we'll bring back our card base. As I say, eventually that is going to rest upon the bottom of it's going to rest on our little box that our little cubic foot that we've made, and the rest of it's going to sit on that front facing tab there. So, and you basically need to decide how high you want your easel to sit. If you put it right down there, it's going to sit very low. I'm sorry, you can't see that. If you put glue the tab towards the top, it's going to sit very low. If you want it to sit higher, you bring it in a bit, so down a bit. So the higher you want it, the lower you should stick that. I'm going to go sort of halfway there somewhere. We do have one important things to do. You've got 2 strips of crushed curry and 2 strips of designer series paper, and they are going to go and decorate our cube a bit, our footrest. So just pop that. So pop the designer series paper, and this is also the Daffodil Afternoon paper. We've got that there, and then we'll pop that on the top facing cube. And then this one will go on the front facing cube. There we are. So I might attach my easel now. Pop some glue on there. As I say, bring that into place. Decide where you want it to sit, and then just rest it up against it just for the moment, just to let it sit in place. Okay. Try and make sure it's straight too, just so it'll fold. And as usual, we need to have a little sample fold. So this one should fold flat like that. You will see a bit of that easel at the back, but it should still fit quite easily into the envelope there. The one I saw done before actually folded slightly different, but you know, this one folds. This is Julianne fold, and it folds slightly different. Folds like that. Okay, there we go. So just have a bit of a sample fold there just to make sure everything's going to fold flat. Okay, sentiments. Got 2 sentiments. We've got 2 sentiment boxes. They're both stitched rectangles. So you've got a large one, which again I'm going to use the Thanks a Bunch from this Celebrate Sunflowers, and a little skinny one, which if you want to put something a little bit extra, can sit on the front like that. So I'm going to, as I say, use the Thanks a Bunch on the big one. And I'm going to use some dimensionals. There we go. Nearly finished completely this one. That's good. And as I said, this one, it's not sticking to things it's not supposed to stick to. This one's going to go from the sunflower on the left through to the right, overlapping the sunflower a wee bit, but not a lot. There we are. Okay, it sits up like that. So that's that one. This little one, just going to go, we've got Thanks a Bunch there, which is really nice, and there is a little one here in Quiet Meadows that You're Too Kind. So I thought that would be nice as a sort of a supplementary sentiment on that little one there. But obviously, if you went, say, I don't know, if your big one you use Happy Birthday, then the little one could be, what could it be with Happy Birthday? Best wishes, or have a great day, or whatever you have that's the size that you could fit onto that. Or you may decide to leave it off completely. It's entirely up to you. It's your card after all. I'm just going to glue that one on, just on that top of that little cube part. There we are. Okay. There. All done. Okay. Bling. Can't go without our bling. So you've got 3 little, again, iridescent gems. You could tell I was into them at the moment. So you managed to get all 3 cards with iridescent gems this time. And just checking where I actually popped them on my original card, but I can't find my original card. Here it is. So we're just going to pop those. I'll pop one of them onto the sentiment box on the bigger one. Just there. And the other 2 up on the right-hand side, I think, up here. Okay, so you can see the bling shining there. And there is card number 3. As I say, it folds by folding that cube in and then bringing the whole thing forward till it collapses. Just grab an envelope and make sure that does fit. Otherwise, I'm going to have to upgrade this. Oh, if I could find an envelope. Here we go. There's an envelope there. And yep, that fits fine. So yeah, so it folds flat, but then the most important bit is that it looks pretty special when it's sitting up like that on display. Okay, phew, 3 cards done. 59 minutes. I love it when I get to manage it for less than an hour. Feel like I've achieved something. There we are. So there's all 3 cards. So you've got your pop-up easel, your Symbols of Fortune layered designer series paper, And our friends are like seashells, Scrappy strip technique. Hopefully you enjoyed those. There's 3 pretty different cards there. Hopefully you get something out of those techniques and you'll be able to use those cards for something for your friends and family. So anyway, thanks very much for joining this class. If you are watching this video on replay after the class is over and you'd like to do future classes, please let me know. There's an email address in my YouTube channel information if you'd like to send me an email. Unfortunately, I can only sell classes to Australian residents. You've got to stay within your own market, but very, very happy to involve you in future classes if you would like to do so. Okay, thanks guys, and I will see you next time.